Well, the greatest gift you give Christ is yourself. I understand God is the giver of gifts, and the Holy Spirit is the giver of gifts, and he gives us gifts. 1 Corinthians 12 and Romans 12 and Ephesians, and there's all these gifts. And you know what he does? He gives you the gifts. You know why he gives you the gifts? So you can give the gifts right back to him. Say, okay, you gave me these gifts. How do you want me to use these gifts? They're yours. I'm yours. I'm your vessel. I'm your vessel. You know, Paul says, listen, Timothy, there are all kinds of vessels in your house. You got vessels of gold and silver, stuff you would eat on, stuff you would serve food on, stuff you would serve to your guests. He says there's also vessels of just clay and stuff. That would be, how can we put this, your chamber pot. Which one do you want to be, Timothy? No, cleanse yourself so that you can become vessels that God can use, that you become the gold or the silver that God cleans up and uses. Listen, all right, let's be honest. But before he finds us, we're the chamber pot. We're on the garbage heap of life. That's what the psalmist said. But then he changes us, and he makes us and cleanses us so that we can be used by him. Sometimes we don't think of it, but being used by God is one of the greatest gifts he has given us. Because there is no greater joy than working for God. Peter wrote this. He said, you are living stones that God is building into a spiritual temple. What's more, you are his holy priests. Now, priests had to work. Through the meditation of Jesus Christ, you offer spiritual sacrifices that please God. Spiritual sacrifices goes beyond prayer and worship and even tithing. Spiritual sacrifice is about doing. Here's your last question that I have for you and for me today. What are we giving God this Christmas? We know what he gave us. Are we giving all that we can to him? It's the foolish man that holds something back. It's the wise man who gives God everything. The wise men seek him. The wise men give to him. We want to be a people who give to him. Would you stand to your feet with me? I'm going to ask the worship team to come back. One of the things I said last week, I said, I may not necessarily teach you anything new. Because it's hard to teach new things about Christmas to somebody who's been in the church for a long time. But all of us need to be reminded sometimes. All of us need to be reminded to kind of be brought back. We talked about joy last week, and this is just a continuation of that. Even though we're talking about seeking God and giving to God, well, you know what? It's all that will still bring great joy to me and you. One of the things as you get older about Christmas is you say, well, Christmas is more for the kids, right? When you're a kid, you love Christmas. When you're a kid, December 24th is the longest day and night. You have trouble going to sleep, right? You are up early, way too early, might I add, because you cannot wait to open your gifts. And then something happens in your teenage years, early 20s, and that's called getting a girlfriend or getting a boyfriend. And then something happens because you really begin to put thought into how to make that person happy. Sure, you would buy for your parents, and you might try, but there's something different when it's the person you're in love with. And then later on, you'll get married. You'll have kids. And all of a sudden, you realize it doesn't matter if you get anything or not. You just like giving to your kids. I love buying presents for Lynn and Willow. I love seeing them happy. See, there's something that changes as we grow up. We understand that the greatest joy I have isn't what I get. The greatest joy I have on Christmas is seeing how happy Willow is and giving to her. It's a sign of emotional maturity, and it's the sign of spiritual maturity. When we go from constantly asking God what we can get from Him, and we find the joy in giving to Him, and great depth of spiritual maturity is when we find great joy giving all that we are and all that we have to Him. Because that is where great joy is felt and found. This Christmas, I'm going to ask you to give God something. And I don't know what that something is. Maybe it's something you're holding on to. Maybe it's an area that you have to let go. Maybe He's asked you to do something and you're kind of hesitant because you know it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. I'm going to ask that you give Him that fear. Say, God, I'm going to do this for you. You want me, then I give you me. This morning as we sing, I want you to begin to really ask the Lord, what can I give you? I know that sounds weird. But you know what? How many remember the Sears catalog back in the day? Mom ever let you look at the Sears catalog? Like when there was a Toys R Us, we had a Toys R Us catalog we let Willow see, and she would circle everything. I want this and this and this and this, and she thought I was Daddy Warbucks. Do you realize God actually still has a list, says, this is what I want from you? And he'll actually say, this is what I want. He's not hiding it. He has his list. And then we say, okay, God, it's tough, but I can do it. I'll give you this. I'll give you me. This morning, begin to do two things. One, ask God if you don't know what to give Him. And two, if you really know what He's asking for. Sometimes we actually need His help to ask for His help. Say, God, please help me give this to you. And whether you do it in your seat or you do it at the altar, say, God, I'm ready to give you this gift of mine, this gift that you desire.
Yes, Jesus. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you.
is the air I breathe. I breathe, Lord, Holy Presence, living in me. This is my daily bread.